The Film Talk is brought to you by you, folks who listen and help out. Just go to patreon.com/the Film Talk for details. And now, on with the show.
Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, we're back once again. Did we ever leave? We did, like Beetlejuice, but now we have returned like Beetlejuice. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Film Talk. I'm Jett Lowe.
I'm Gareth Higgins. The conversation never ends. And like Beetlejuice, we're recording this on the opening weekend.
Yes.
Probably going to be like, I don't know, the third or fourth biggest opening weekend of the year in terms of the numbers of people going to see this film. Might it be the case for this episode that we could have our largest audience ever?
I believe so, because the folks out there, you who are listening right now, you can't get enough of that sweet, sweet Beetlejuice content. Hey, folks, don't get me wrong. I loved so many parts of this film. This is a movie I love. There are many parts to this film. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. Gareth and I never discussed the film ahead of time. We're going this cold. This is a film I liked lots of it. This is a film that answers that immortal question, Gareth, dear listeners. What if you made a sequel to Beetlejuice and called it Beetlejuice, and at the same time you made another sequel to Beetlejuice, let's call it Beetlejuice, and you overlaid them in the same film on a temporal axis? Because that's what you get. We get two sequels combined in this picture. You want to tell the listeners out there,
hold on. We're already we're like 1.5 minutes into the show where we're already double laying things in a temporal axis.
Yes, we are. That's the kind of quality and value you get in the Film Talk.
Are you Carl Sagan?
If only. Imagine being one of the folks that got to decide what to put on that golden disc that went on the two Voyager missions, the only things that may ever survive humanity. And you've got some, I think, Louis Armstrong.
And I think an episode of the Film Talk.
That did not get on the golden disc, but there was a Louis Armstrong song. There's a great shot of some hands picking grapes. Beetlejuice, don't say it 3 times. Tell the listeners what it's about, and then we'll get a clip.
36 years after the original Beetlejuice, about a rambunctious and frankly aggressive ghost played by Michael Keaton. He's back in Tim Burton's film, in which Winona Ryder, playing the grown-up daughter of the family at the heart of the original film, is the presenter of I call it a paranormal TV show, paranormal reality TV show, where she investigates scary goings on in people's houses, and she's got some pain in her life, and her daughter's not doing too well either. Monica Bellucci has stabled herself back together, and for some reason agreed to be in this film, in which she gets to do so little I had almost forgotten that she was in it. And
the film forgets that she's in it for many stretches.
There's bleak stuff, there's funny stuff, there's at least one surprise cameo, which we won't spoil because it might be the most enjoyable thing in the film.
I don't know what I have no idea what Gareth is. Maybe I went out to the bathroom. Did I miss a cameo?
I know that I tried to give things a fair win, and I will intend to do that in how we discuss this film.
Okay.
But if you may be detecting a tone of at least mild disappointment in Beetlejuice, and I believe we have a clip.
Yes, we do. In this clip, there's a clip from Beetlejuice. Let's listen in.
I know this is a big step for you, but in the words of Dr. Glickman, I'm going to give you the push you need. Beetlejuice.
Is that Beetlejuice?
First of all, I want you two kids to know this is a safe space, okay? Feel free to express yourself. Don't be afraid. I sense there's an enabler here, but we'll get to that.
You're a figment of my imagination.
Really? Is this a figment of your imagination?
And that is Beetlejuice. Jett, you've already said that there were parts of this film, and many parts. And
yes,
I know exactly what you're saying about a first sequel and then a second sequel overlaid on top of the first sequel. Here's here's the thing.
Okay.
I'll start with what I liked, because in the spirit of meaningful feedback loops that are what you want to use when you want to build bridges and transform conflict.
You're talking about a virtuous circle.
You start with what works. What works for me is the parts that are satirical of hypocrisy in entertainment, hypocrisy in having a public life, hypocrisy in the art world, and superficiality in the art world. There's a tremendous joke in which social media influencers literally get sucked into their phones. Good visual joke making a meaningful point, and also a critique of superficial therapy culture. There's some good jokes about trauma and mindfulness, but they're sort of made as it were from the inside, as someone who's dealt with, lives with, works with PTSD. I was not offended by these jokes. They didn't feel like they were punching down. They felt like people who've experienced the gamut of attempts at addressing trauma and things like that might also feel like we're laughing with ourselves. I appreciate that. Willem Dafoe playing the ghost of an actor who played a kind of a cheesy Beretta. Was that the name of the guy? The TV show? Or was there a show called Beretta with a cop?
Was that the one where he had
Robert Blake?
Oh goodness, Robert Blake.
Yeah,
where he had a bird on his shoulder. I think that was Beretta.
I don't know. Well,
not Banachek. Banachek was the insurance investigator.
He plays the ghost of a kind of a curmudgeonly action hero cop who doesn't realize that he's not really that, and that cops don't actually speak that way. That's quite funny. And there are two sequences on what's called the platform for the Soul Train that had me almost punching the air with joy. A lot of that's well done. And as in every Tim Burton film, the visual design and the feel of the thing is unique. It's been designed to within an inch of its life. And sadly, as with at least half of Tim Burton's films, at least half of them, the design overwhelms the storytelling, or the storytelling hasn't been as fleshed out or constructed in a way that feels like anything surprising is ever going to happen. This film, maybe more than most, big budget intended hits of its kind in recent years, felt like a script by numbers in which they'd gone to Robert McKee's story seminar and had simply almost like filled in a flow chart in which you know everything around the next quarter, including the two alleged twists in the last scene, both of them utterly predictable. And the heaviest feeling I had most of the way through this film, and now I'll end what we have come affectionately to refer to as my opening statement with this, Jet, and I'm eager to hear.
I love your opening statements. Because what happens is I get to lean back. The audience can't see this.
And watch Dr. Zhivago.
I sit back, I watch another movie. Right now, I'm watching the wonderful, not wonderful, it's got some problems, the new film by the director of Green Room and Blue Ruin. I'm watching Rebel Ridge right now. It's looking pretty good. We'll see how it goes.
Jeremy Saulnier, yes.
Saulnier, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yes. So the heaviest feeling I had in this film was really strange. I'm going to ask you a question, Jen.
I'm here to answer all questions. But not about Rebel Ridge, because I haven't gotten to the end of it yet.
Okay. How many Ghostbusters movies are there? Just what's your gut reaction? How many Ghostbusters movies are there? Don't think about it. Just think?
Just
say.
5?
So you're not sure, right? Well,
I'm not sure.
When was the last Ghostbusters movie released?
It's impossible to say now with the condensation of time. I meant the condensement of time, not the condensation. Time is not dripping on us. The air conditioner of time. Look at that condensation. You got to get a new filter for that time. Let me tell you, that's what happened with Beetlejuice. How I want to say it was released within a year.
It was about 6 months ago.
Okay.
Did you see it?
I don't even, if I did, I don't remember it, which
There
probably
you
means
go.
I did see it.
Neither do I. I mean, I have to work to try to remember that film. Beetlejuice. I had to work to try to remember it while I was watching it. It just felt like I was watching colorful projected images and sounds on a screen.
You just described a movie.
As flat as can be.
Oh,
And
no.
before we were on air, we were talking about something, not the film itself, but the way films are projected. I was watching it in a shoebox room in a multiplex. You know, most of the rooms in multiplexes are not designed with the viewer in mind. The screen's too small. It's at the end of a long, like a shoebox. There's no matting and framing of the image. There's just blank screen on the sides of the image. There used to be curtains. There used to be a sense of it being something to go to watch a film. The way most films are projected these days, nobody cares. There's no projectionist anymore. And I don't know what's going on in Tim Burton's mind. And I'm not gonna, we've talked often about, it's not a personal critique of the people who make films. It's hard to make a film. And in some senses, it might be, there's ways in which making a big budget film, and certainly a big budget sequel to a beloved classic, might actually be harder than making a small film for which there may be very limited expectations. But I felt kind of disrespected by this movie.
That you took it personally.
I felt like the lack of imagination that had been put into the storytelling was like, what's the point? What's
my
the point
goodness.
in this? There's a moment in this where a character gets to say goodbye to the father that they lost when they were very young, and the person who used to be married to this man gets to say goodbye to him, and it is as perfunctory as, do you know what I'm going to say? You're going to guess what I'm going to say.
No, I'm not, but I'm going to disagree with you about this.
Okay, we'll get that. For me, it's as perfunctory
because it's a joke.
as Tom McCarthy falling off the side of the spaceship in 2012, whatever ship it was. I don't even remember. Were there aliens in 2012? The father of this family who are reuniting with John Cusack, and their father falls to his death, and nobody bats an eyelid. So there's no emotional truth in this film. It just felt like a waste of energy, and God bless all the people involved in it.
Okay,
I'm sure they tried their best.
Now listen. Okay, thank you for your opening statement. We are live for the debate. Got Dana Bash from CNN moderating. Is your mic turned off when I speak?
I was going to say, you're going to mute my mic.
If I want to be charitable to this film, and I liked a lot about this film, and this film's going to get better the more I think about it, I'm even going to go see it again. I'm going to tell you why. That scene, we'll just take this as an example. That scene, which seems perfunctory, of the great reunion. We've been hearing about this dad the whole time, and he's going to reunite with Winona Ryder and his daughter. And they shoot it in a wide shot, and they're having coffee in a little crappy waiting room cafe, and he's covered with live snapping animatronic piranhas, and they hug each other. And it's a joke about how ridiculous it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
The film, yes. The
no,
film
it's not.
is
Tim Burton's at his best. He is compassionate for the vulnerable and compassionate for, I'm going to use this word advisedly, freaks in the Todd Browning sense of that term.
When this
film has no compassion.
We can talk about that. Okay, we can talk about that, because for folks that are younger than listening, Tim Burton had a real impact in American culture. I can't speak for, I didn't move overseas until the 90s, but he had a big impact in American culture in the 80s. We were under this suffocating blanket of Reagan and Thatcher as well, that said, screw you, I've got mine. There is no such thing as society, to paraphrase Margaret Thatcher's famous comment in a printed interview. And films like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, Drugstore Cowboy, The Terminator, Blue Velvet, these films show that there is a seedy underbelly to the idea of a bright, shining America, and there are ways out. Blue Velvet, of course, you got the pan down, you see the bugs underneath the ground in the opening scene, that there's something rotten at the core of America. And at his best in those early Burton films, and this is to your point, he showed up the hypocrisy and shallowness of the dominant culture, and then he had these anti-heroes. And it's no coincidence. You think about all of those successful, lauded great groundbreaking films of Tim Burton in the early days, they're all named after the main character. You might as well just be called Tim Burton, right? You got Pee-wee, then you got Beetlejuice, then you got Batman, you got Edward Scissorhands, you got Ed Wood. They're all named after the main character. And at his best, he was exposing the hypocrisy and shallowness of things. Then at its worst, it just sort of morphed into, the kind of the cool goth kid who just can't, who is so disdainful of those people whose taste is not as good as theirs. The feeling of disdain curdled for me in his movies into a feeling of contempt. When you watch something like Mars Attacks, I find it very unsettling because of the seeming contempt that the film has for all its characters, the way that they kill Jack Black, the way the film laughs at, look at these rubes, they don't know art. And he has terrible tendencies. What was so great for me about Beetlejuice is that contempt was not there. Instead, we're back to the Pee-wee's Big Adventure of having joy, finding joy in being different. And that's one of the things that I loved about his film. I'm going to disagree with you again, that ending scene, the joke is, or the scene about the people being reunited, the joke is, look at these fish that are snapping. The whole film is peppered with that. That's part of the original Beetlejuice charm. You look in the background, who are the people in the waiting room? There's like a figure that seems to be based on Joey Chestnut, the competitive hot dog eater. He's got hot dogs stuffed in his mouth. That's how he died. There's someone as Santa Claus burned to a crisp. That's someone who got stuck in a chimney. Maybe it's a Gremlins reference, maybe not. But there's a fun playfulness in there that is in this film. Now, I understand that you had problems with it, and they're probably similar problems that I had on a structural filmic level. When I made that joke at the top of the show,
we don't have similar problems.
Well, here's the issue. Well, let me tell you,
between us, we've got a lot.
While I was watching Rebel Ridge during your opening statement, I was making a list of my problems. It's pretty long. It's like the waiting line list in Beetlejuice. Here's the thing. The reason I made that joke about, overlaying films on a temporal axis. There's a twist thing that happens in this movie. And as soon as it happened, I thought, well, wait a minute. This should have been the driving force of the whole film. Basically, we'll say what happens is that there's a villain that is introduced. You think it's a nice boy. He turns out to be a bad guy and a ghost. I'm like, oh, we shouldn't see Beetlejuice until then. We can see Beetlejuice right at the beginning. And then for the first 30 minutes, whatever is 35, we don't see Beetlejuice. Then this happens, the ghost reveal, the boyfriend is bad guy, and the girl and Lydia Dietz's daughter's in trouble. And then what does she have to do? She has to bring Beetlejuice back. So she's got to make this, she's got to be proactive. And that's why we get Beetlejuice. We're going to unleash this trickster demon. And that's totally great plot for a whole movie. Instead, this film has that plot and, oddly, a whole nother plot with another villain played by Monica Bellucci, who is Beetlejuice's ex-wife. That could be, you're watching that, go, why isn't that Beetlejuice? That should be the third film. We get backstory on Beetlejuice. That's a whole nother plot. And there's another villain with the great Justin Theroux. So it is ungainly and overstuffed. But here's my question about that, Gareth.
That's a great full quote for the poster.
Here's the thing, Gareth. When's the last time you saw Beetlejuice? How long?
The first Beetlejuice?
Yes.
Probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Same here.
Didn't like it that much.
Okay, but here's the thing. You say classic. You may even said beloved classic. I'm not sure, but you said classic.
Yeah.
Watch it again, because I watched it a couple of days ago. It's just as ungainly and out of shape plot-wise. The film meanders all over the place. It doesn't have a strong narrative drive, but people love it because once you know the plot, once you've seen it a couple times, then you can just luxuriate in it. Like people luxuriate in The Big Lebowski. When it first came out, people didn't quite get it. What is this? But then once you know what's going to happen, you can just luxuriate in its pleasures, whatever those pleasures are for the film. And while watching Beetlejuice, I felt, you know what? This film's going to get better the more times you see it because you're not going to worry about what happens. You're just going to enjoy things like wherever William Dafoe is, a cup of coffee is brought to him. I guffawed. I laughed out loud right at the end. William Dafoe was there, big shootout scene, and then the coffee's brought to him again. It's hysterical. Vern Gorman as the drunken priest.
Oh, he's great.
Is literally
he's great.
Laugh out loud. Now I don't know if any. That sentence. Hold on one sec. May never have been said before in the English language. Vern Gorman was hilariously.
Well, and it's funny the fact that I actually didn't pick up on him being a whiskey priest as you're suggesting. It's more.
Well, I'm not suggesting
The-
it is. You may tell you the clues.
I was picking up more in his language because it's a satire of the way religious talk
Yes.
often sounds, particularly to people who are not fully engaged, or not fully sounds like a bad but who are not deeply engaged in religious cultures, as opposed to them completely getting clergy wrong, which is what movies usually do. But, you know, so funnily enough, he felt like a more realistic satire of what, as the spouse of a clergy person, my husband would laugh at this as well, rather than being irritated, which they often are when they see ridiculous portrayals of clergy that are simply inaccurate, such as Clint Eastwood wearing a clerical collar in an independent rural church at the start of Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, and 1,000 other examples of historical inaccuracies in the portrayal of clergy. This is a satire. It gets that part right. And I'm having an interesting experience recording this show, Chet, because we are disagreeing agreeably, as hopefully we always do. We're disagreeing, although this time the disagreement is in the direction that I don't think the listener would predict. I really didn't like something, and you did. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, the thing is that, again,
usually I'm the nicey, happy, goody.
Strip away the plot, and this is a film in which every couple of minutes I'm laughing out loud, and I was the only one in the theater. And we can talk about that. You mentioned curtains.
Well, we should.
You know, younger listeners won't know. In the old days, you would go see a movie, there would be a curtain in front of the screen, and then when it starts, it would open up, so it was an event, and often the image would get projected on the curtain, like the opening bits and pieces, and then the film would be what Gareth used the word matted off, meaning you wouldn't see gray bars. So now I'm watching a projected television, as Tarantino would say it, and there's gray bars on the side because the shape of the 16 by 9 or 2.3 to 1 is whatever. It's not the same shape as the area in the theater, and it's not matted off properly. When it was matted off properly with curtains, you had this full-on experience because the edges were black, and now they're not. Now, I was the only one in the theater, and I was still laughing. So I want to go see this again with like a full crowd, right? All the theaters around me, you can reserve seats so you can see how many seats are sold. I'm going to go see it maybe tonight. We're recording this on Saturday night, opening weekend, because, you know, for every couple of minutes I'd be like, oh, this isn't that good, and then there would be something hysterical that would happen, like a Burn Gorman, you know, popping off with these, you know, ridiculous mafoofless. That's not.
I think he's a character. I think he's a really old guy in the Bible.
Well, yeah, but the only time Dr. Seuss illustrated the Bible, he had the character Mafoofilus. You know the word I'm trying to say. It is. What is the word I'm trying to say?
You know, Elysian Fields is spelled differently than the way they spell it in the film. But that
was a disappointment with Matt Damon. People were really hoping for something more. Was that Elysium? Let's talk. So this film has real pleasures. I feel like you didn't tune into the pleasures. I didn't feel
some of the pleasures.
I did not. You got to feel more pleasures. The film is about pleasure.
My mother gave me Richard Harris's album she didn't give it to me. I in a sign of things to come, I purloined it from her when I was about 7 years old, and I know MacArthur Park back forward, all directions. I love that song. I'm glad they used it. That's delightful. Made me laugh. Chuckle. The cameo that you obviously either were at the bathroom for or didn't realize was a cameo made me laugh.
What cameo was this?
I'm not going to spoil it.
No, spoil it. Tell me now. This is one of the pleasures, because this is like eating a rich cake. Who?
Are you going to beat this? Bleep this?
What?
Bleep this name?
What is the? I'm not going to bleep. That's more production.
Danny DeVito.
Oh, well.
You didn't know he was going to be in it?
No, I didn't. I didn't know anybody was. I don't watch trailers. I didn't know Danny DeVito.
You knew Michael Keaton was going to be in it.
I knew that was it.
That's another reason why you enjoyed the film more than
it's full of rich pleasures. Let's talk about some of these pleasures of the performances. Willem Dafoe, fantastic. Justin Theroux, fantastic. Michael Keaton, virtuoso. Ladies and gentlemen, Gareth's making some faces.
I love these people. I just felt the thing was flat.
Got to see it again.
No, you don't.
I'd see it again. Look, there's a Mario Bava reference. They refer if folks out there, if you haven't seen the Italian films of Mario Bava, go see what is it, Black Sunday. Go see Planet of the Vampires. Go see that great anthology film he did with Boris Karloff. The name escapes me because you tell me you didn't like the pleasure of all of a sudden Michael Keaton, Beetlejuice starts talking in Italian and they cut to basically a Mario Bava film for almost like 5 minutes.
Was it not Spanish?
Maybe it was Spanish. Oh, no, he does Italian later. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was great.
Romance language.
There's this. I know you're well aware of this phrase because I think it can apply to the role I play on the Film Talk sometimes, and that is a thing can be less than the sum of its parts. And there are wonderful parts in this film, and the person who's chiefly responsible for assembling those parts has made wonderful films. We talked before in planning the show that could we talk about our one favorite Tim Burton film other than this, and I'll tell you, I went back and looked through his filmography, and I can't limit it to one. I have 7 favorite Tim Burton films.
Planet of the Apes, of course.
Nope.
Number 1.
Nope.
Planet of the Apes.
No.
Never, to quote Mark Wahlberg in this film, never send an ape to do a man's job. Do you know there's a scene in Planet of the Apes in which the heroes are getting...
There are many scenes in Planet of the Apes.
The camera's locked... Hold on.
Many scenes.
The camera is locked down, and we have kind of a tableau, and we see our heroes, Mark Wahlberg and some other people, and they're there in the middle of the frame, and then they run out, and then coming... on the right side of the frame, and then the apes come on the left, go, ooh, where are they? And it feels like an Ed Wood film. And you know what? Can we just say one thing? I will say one thing about Monica Bellucci in this like completely superfluous plot. In Ed Wood, my favorite Tim Burton film, there's jokes made about some of the characters, like why is he walking in hallways and he's having struggles. Monica Bellucci, like the film forgets she's in it. And then you just see her walking down hallways all the time. And it almost like is a homage to bad cinema. So I kind of enjoyed that. But tell me about your favorite Tim Burton films.
Oh, Ed Wood, Big Fish, Sweeney Todd, Sleepy Hollow, Batman Returns, and Edward Scissorhands.
What about Planet of the Apes?
They're all fantastic films. And I think there's something that unites them. You already made this point about, it's an interesting point. It might well be that his best films are the ones that are named after the main character, and even Big Fish is named after the main character of that movie. I think there's a deeper piece, and that is when they're based, for the most part, when they're based on pre-existing depth. Batman, obviously. Sweeney Todd, obviously. Sleepy Hollow.
Ed Wood
for Edward.
Well, let's
start.
The
script for Edward Scissorhands is extraordinary.
And Ed Wood, the script, they literally just they optioned some books about his life, and they wrote on index cards all the great anecdotes, and then you put the index cards up on a wall, and then you arrange them to make the plot, and it's fantastic.
And there's a humanity to all of them. And I did think I went back and rewatched Big Fish, because I think if you'd asked me before today what's my favorite of all, I would have said Big Fish. I've changed my mind slightly for I think a good reason. The reason I loved Big Fish, and the reason I think it's his best story, is it's a story about storytelling. The whole film is about 2 different ways of telling the story about your life. There's the kind of blunt, here's one fact after another, and then there's the mythic version of the story. And of course, the way the film ends is it mingles those and says you can actually have both. There can be a poetic or a mythic truth alongside the kind of blunt facts of a life. And so I've always thought that the reason that was what I had thought of as his best film was because he's kind of forced to think more about storytelling as he goes. And I don't know, maybe if Tim Burton's listening to this, he's deeply offended. I don't want to offend him. I'd love to have a conversation with him about what he thinks about storytelling. But the reason I take a step back from thinking Big Fish is the best, having watched it again this morning, it's so strange because at one level it's his lightest film, it's his airiest film, and it's just far too bright. If it had actually been shot the way most of his films look, with a bit more darkness in it, I think it would be a better movie. So if you're going to push me, what's Tim Burton's best film?
Planet of the Apes.
It's Batman. And it's Batman partly because he's only 3 films into his career at that point. 3 feature
Well,
films.
he had done the Shelley Duvall stuff and some other bits.
Yeah,
And pieces.
he'd done episodic TV and short films. He's only 3 features into his career at that point. You remember the massive anticipation and the pressure, and pre-internet fanboy pushback when Michael Keaton was cast as Bruce Wayne. But that film, given how early he is in his career, the imagination and the way it looks and it feels, and it also makes some pot shots about political corruption and top down authoritarianism, stuff like that. The fact that I stood in line for 3 hours from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the 11th of August 1989 outside the Strand Cinema to see it on opening day is either icing on the cake or blinds me completely to its flaws as a movie. Of deep affection for it. The guy has made some great films. I might see Beetlejuice again because you seem to be thinking of it as the next Andrei Rublev. And,
okay, Captain Strawman. Listen. No, I stand by what I said. Once throwaway expectation.
You're sitting. Stand. If you're going to say that you stand by it, would you please stand for the listener?
In my mind, I'm always standing.
I want to let you know, dear listener, Jett is declining to stand.
Mentally, I'm standing. It helps for my psychic posture. I would stand for Beetlejuice, the one in which we have the fleshed out story of Monica Bellucci. And don't forget, she is made of parts. This film's all about parts, and she is made of parts and staples herself together, much like it seems the screenplay. Go see it again with a big crowd and when there's no expectations, and just enjoy, or invite friends over when it comes out on streaming or Cube or whatever, the triangle pyramid device of the future, whatever it comes out on, because it's full of just incidental pleasures every couple of minutes, which the first film is as well. And, it's such an inventive world that was conjured up, no pun intended, on the first film, or was sort of like this, nobody had seen anything like it before. It's like, well, there's an afterlife, but it's also kind of alien. What are these worms? Like at one point they go to Saturn. And
I like the worms. I like the worms.
It
the
all works.
Are good.
How do you stand before we end?
You don't often get 1 year with two films of sandworms.
I'm sure there's people that are going to prefer these worms to the other worms. I love me some David Lynch worms, and I'm not even talking about Dune.
I'm thinking of.
Here's the thing. My biggest complaint with this movie, and it's not about, and it has to do with modern movie making, in which,
yes,
dear listeners, if you're
nice alliteration there, nice alliteration.
Thank you. If you're not in the business, you may not be aware of how much post-processing is going on actors' faces now with digital smoothing. And what that means is, even if you've seen some of the Bullet Train, I know there were some screw-ups on that one. When you got the close-ups of Brad Pitt, they're doing digital smoothing, they're taking out the wrinkles, and sometimes they screw up a little bit. If you have more time, you'll work on it more. But at this point, if you go see a big budget Hollywood movie, I'm using that generic term, Hollywood movie, everybody's face is being processed. And in this one, Catherine O'Hara, God bless, both her and Winona Ryder have lots of makeup on, of course. But there's so much digital processing, smoothing going on, let's say with Catherine O'Hara, that she appears to be the same age as Winona Ryder. And it's actually really, really distracting. And now, of course, they did that in the old days. They would famously, you would put some nylons over the lens, right? You put some Vaseline on the lens. Go watch Casablanca or Hitchcock Picture. And every time they cut to someone who's female woman, all of a sudden she's got this gauziness. Or look at Star Trek, the original series. There's Captain Kirk, their bones is looking pretty rough. And then they cut to, someone who's a woman, and all of a sudden there's a glow. It's because they're literally putting the equivalent of nylon stockings, a version of that, a little less heavy, over the lens when they shoot women. And now they're doing that with technology, but I found that really distracting. That's my only note. And on the plus side, you're getting
enough.
Yes.
Interesting enough, perhaps not interesting at all, but interesting for me. You naming your one complaint has provoked me to think of something really good about this film that I haven't mentioned.
That's why we do the show.
And I'm going to tell you, this is the way it works.
Okay.
It's like Challengers. You've lobbed the ball over the net.
Which one of us is Zendaya?
Challengers is the film of the year,
yeah,
right?
Probably.
Thus far, probably. Okay.
That or Planet of the Apes.
You've lobbed the ball. I'm gonna hit it back and say, Winona Ryder in this film is fantastic because she is actually playing the grown-up version of the character that she played in the first film. She's not She doesn't feel like other characters that she's played, which is pretty much what everybody else does. And dear listener, if you could only see Jett's face, if you could only see, he looks like the face of one of those characters in Beetlejuice, whose eyes pop almost beyond their head. Are you going to tell us you don't like Winona Ryder's fantastic performance?
I was not going to mention her because there's enough cruelty in the world. Winona Ryder in this movie, I wasn't going to say anything. She stands out. I'll say that from everybody else.
Mercy. Oh, mercy. Oh,
and
mercy.
The reason she stands out, it's not that she's a bad actress. It's that, and maybe did she retire after, she had some struggles and some problems. People like Willem Dafoe or Justin Theroux or Catherine O'Hara, I've been busy working actors their entire lives.
In Stranger Things.
And she has the same issue with Stranger Things. It's not that she's acting badly. She's not an actor.
She's fantastic in this film.
She's every fantastic. Scene with her is the worst. It derails the film.
I think it's the best performance she's given since The Age of Innocence.
I'll have to go revisit that.
You should. That's a magnificent
movie. I thought she almost sinks the film. Not because she's bad, because she's not acting in the traditional sense. She doesn't have the tool set that a Dafoe or a Theroux or Catherine O'Hara or the actress who plays her daughter does.
Jenna Ortega.
It's really, it's not, I'm not going to say embarrassing because,
right. Well, but you just did.
No, if someone is tone deaf and they don't know it and they're singing, you don't want to embarrass them. I don't think she's an actress in this film. Maybe she's having a great time. So we're going to agree to disagree. Now I'm rethinking Beetlejuice.
She wasn't so great. Here's the thing. I'm going to ask you, Jett, to reduce the focus to zero in laser-like on the one Tim Burton film. If you could only watch one again, and you had to watch it once every 22 months, which one would it be? And I'll do the same. I'll hold myself to the same standard and say the films of Tim Burton that I've liked the most have been the ones in which the protagonist is actually discovering their purpose and meaning in life, chief among them being Big Fish. And the one I would revisit every 22 months, if I was limited to doing so, would be Batman.
I'd go with Ed Wood. It's a perfect film in the sense that I can't, it's hard to come up with films like what films are perfect. Like there's not a misstep. Everything is exactly in the right place. Everything does exactly what it should be doing. Maybe the good, the bad, and the ugly. I feel bad, by the way, dear listener, about what I just said about Winona Ryder. So I'm going to see it again, and maybe my mind will be changed. And I'm going to watch The Age of Innocence.
The greatest gangster movie that Scorsese ever made.
Oh, that's a hot take. Any final thoughts on Beetlejuice?
Nope.
Well, does it lead into our bonus episode we're going to be putting out in a few days? Dennis Quaid as Reagan.
As Reagan. Does it lead into that? Well, he was still, good Lord, Reagan was still president when Beetlejuice was released.
This is what I'm saying at the top of the show, why it was a tonic to Reagan and Reaganism. Folks, if you subscribe, patreon.com/thefilmtalk, you can get bonus episodes where we're going to talk about Reagan, because Gareth really wanted to talk about Reagan. So yours truly,
I think it's important
Gareth's
to talk
friend,
about it.
Had to go see Reagan. So we're going to talk about that. It's been a fun show, Gareth. I feel we've learned a little something about each other, possibly.
Have we grown? We've even grown.
Are you going to see Beetlejuice again? Beetlejuice again. Will you go back?
I will. Yes, because you've made the case. I will watch it with other people. I will watch it with other people. And this is a plea from the depths of my being to the developers out there who are building movie theaters. Can you please consider building the movie theater with the projection of movies in mind?
I don't know if movie theaters are ever going to be built again.
That would mean making the screen bigger than the field of vision of the audience, organizing the chairs in such a way that you can actually see the screen,
the seats,
and than to those of you who run. I'd pay more. I would pay more. Those of you who run theaters, if you have 30 screenings a day of the same movie, nobody's going to have fun watching that movie, and they're not going to come back to do it again as often as they used to, because they'll say, nobody's in the room with me. And there is a film like Beetlejuice warrants the communal experience. I do think it would have moved, if I was a star rating kind of guy, it would have moved from a 2 to a 3-star movie had I seen it with a large audience who were all having fun together. And to those of you who are running movie theaters that have fewer resources, little independent art house movie theaters, thank you so much for everything you do. Even if the screen wasn't designed with the audience in mind, we know your heart is in the right place. And I'm naming no particular art houses for which I feel the deepest affection.
Well, I think the Film Talk is designed with the audience in mind. I hope folks, you out there who are listening right now, got something out of today's show. I'm going to see Beetlejuice again, and so I feel bad about what I said about Winona Ryder's work. I'm going to see it again. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the show via patreon.com/filmtalk. You want to hear about Reagan and other bonus shows, like talking about the great Larry Cohen's Q, Quetzalcoatl, the Winged Serpent, and others. Also, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/thefilmtalk. It's been a good show.
Our voices have gotten very, I don't know. It's not morose. What's the gentle? Is it gentle? Quiet? It's like, we're like Gary Cole. We're like Gary Cole on that show where he was like late night DJ.
I don't know.
Midnight caller.
I don't know. I'm taking caller. We got line number 2. We've got
line 2. It's Gareth Higgins, and he's saying that I hope that, like Jett's perspective on Beetlejuice, that this episode has given you some rich pleasures at least every couple of minutes.
It's been a good show, folks. I've been Jett Lowe.
I've been that self-same aforementioned Gareth Higgins, and we'll keep talking
next time for Reagan.